Look at her now. She just completely relaxed.
Or burnt out, one or the other.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
We're going to be live in a second, everyone.
Okay.
Over to you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much. Now that we're connected and streaming, I would like to call this meeting to order at 10:01. And the first thing I would like to do is the land acknowledgement, because I would like to acknowledge that we're in the hands of lands, we're on the lands rather of traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. They continue to care for this land. They continue to shape our township of Georgian Bay. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today in guiding our decisions and actions. Megwitch. I have to ask my fellow councilors if they are aware of any pecuniary interest that they need to declare at this time.
No.
I'm seeing no hands. And in Brian's case, I'm not even seeing a face. So having heard nothing, I'm going to assume that you do not. But if it comes up during the meeting, please declare then. And the next I have on the agenda is staff award for Jennifer Schnier. Ms. Schneider, apparently you've been with the township for a good 10 years now. Is there any truth to that?
There's truth. It's true.
I was trying to remember the first time I met you and when exactly that was. I do know it was on the, at least to the best of my recollection, it was on the Delawana property many, many years, long before I held elected office. Unless you count being part of the Cottage Association as an elected office. But I've found you to be an invaluable colleague in our governance of this township. You're a wealth of information, and you know I absolutely admire your ability to remember people's names. Because you know I'm the polar opposite.
Yeah.
So I say congratulations and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
I would hand you a nice certificate.
Well, you're welcome.
And an envelope, but nobody gave them to me to give to you.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, and with that, we go on to the consent agenda. And I have to now get to my right form. And the resolution in front of us would be it resolved that council adopts the consent agenda June 19th, 2020 as circulated. And this was moved by Councilor Rienko, seconded by Councilor Jarvis. Any comments? I'm hearing none, so I'm going to ask all those in favor. Okay, and I'm going to presume Brian's hand has gone up as well. And if not, Brian, you're going to have to speak up. So after that, I have to go through a fair number of pages provided to me because we're now on to the regular agenda. And then we have a motion.
For Your Worship, would you like to do communications from mayor and council first?
You want to do that before or after we adopt the agenda? Because this is not.
It's before.
Okay. Communications. I am going to start, I'm going to go in opposite order from last month. So I'm going to start with Councillor Hazelton.
Lucky me.
Well, there you go. We don't count on it next month.
Alrighty. Again, with our COVID state, not a lot of meetings, but a lot of communication with residents on a variety of topics, some of which we will be talking more about today. But other than that, a fairly quiet COVID time.
All right, Councillor Rienko. You are muted, Councillor Rienko.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gotcha. Yeah, no, I've had a quiet month, just a lot of individual communications. There's been no meetings, just a few discussions with SSEA and so on, but nothing significant.
All right, thank you. Then we'll go on to Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like my fellow councillors. It was fairly quiet, other than communicating with constituents, some of the staff on various items. But we did have one Zoom meeting with MNRF Sorel, which is now being told to me that it's Swift River Energy Limited, which is the Bala Falls people, and OPG. Just on the Freshet update, this is, I think, our third year that we've done this meeting together, which is really helpful. It's been a really good meeting to put together each year for all, I think, everyone involved in it. They reported out that they had an unbelievably smooth transition this spring. It was easy for them to keep everything under control, and I believe that they were quite happy with how this rolled out, being it was the first year that Sorel was involved as well. And I think that shows that the communication is getting better between them, their cooperation with each other, which is really fantastic. I don't believe that there was any problems with any of the lakes involved that I'm aware of. You know, it's quite a tricky system to operate, to have that water flow properly and get to where it needs to get. And timing wise, quite an interesting, you know, it's a very interesting meeting to listen into, and I hope in the future that they can come and actually do this and present it to council as a whole, because it's quite informative. But they were very happy with that, and of course we were all pretty happy to see that the water levels didn't get too high this year, and they didn't have overfilling and underfilling basically of the lakes. So, and that's pretty much it for me. Quite as with COVID on the go. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we've lost Councillor Bochek. I'm hoping he returns. In the meantime, I'm going to skip to Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, not too much here. Participated in the GBLT, or listened to the GBLT series on lighthouses on the Georgian Bay, which is an interesting webinar. Very interesting to hear about those all the lighthouses up and down the bay and their current status. And I've seen a couple of webinars on lake levels. I'm not sure if any of them have been since our last council meeting, to be honest with you, but I'm getting tired of hearing that the water is going to continue to keep going up, which is a little annoying. And then we had a scheduled library board meeting yesterday, but it was postponed due to lack of quorum. So we hope to meet next week. That's it. I got Segbe this afternoon after this.
Councillor Bochek, I see you're back with us. Your report for the last month.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hope everyone can hear me. I've finally got an internet connection. My month has basically been spent working with constituents on small issues to do with different departments within the township, and I've addressed them with staff members, with our CAO, and with our clerk throughout the month. Nothing really new, just the same old issues coming up and trying to get them resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, you were first last month, so you're last this month.
Thank you, Peter. I would say essentially ditto to all the other comments. It's been somewhat quiet, although a lot of Zoom meetings, etc. I will add in, just as an observation, it's been very quiet out on Georgian Bay, except I'm seeing an inordinate number of passes by the OPP and the Coast Guard. No boats out here, but we're getting heavily policed and Coast Guarded, so sort of interesting. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I think what I find interesting and follow up to that last remark, Councillor Cooper, was that the OPP keep telling us about all the marine patrols they've done each of the past weekends and how many boats they pulled over and how many people they've charged. I get the impression they are certainly more active this spring than they were last spring. even though my observation is there's a fair bit less traffic of residential traffic, if I can call it that. My past month included district council meetings, health board meetings, land trust meetings. I was also attended the meeting, the Freshette meeting that Councillor Douglas referred to, and I found that very interesting. And I couldn't help but remark during that meeting that if only the Great Lakes were managed as much as the inland lakes were coming to with regards to levels, or inland lake folks sometimes get quite upset by a few inches. And I'm thinking, well, we don't get upset by only a few feet. It's when it comes to meters change that on the Great Lakes that we're a little more concerned, shall we say. Also had a so-called modernization meeting with the district mayors and a number of other councillors attending about, I don't know if I'd want to call it restructuring, but reviewing how the structure of the district and including such things as how many councillors we have on the district council. The initial meeting was more or less a catch up for people like myself who weren't participating in any prior exercises from prior years. It'll be interesting to see how that goes forward. But I found it quite interesting. And I'm also going to echo everybody else's reflection that I found this past month much quieter than the prior month, in that the prior month was like April through the first part of May was full of residents. I received more correspondence than my, I'll call it, career as mayor to date. In the past, as soon as the marinas were open, that correspondence almost disappeared, and it sort of got back to normal. So all of a sudden other complaints started appearing, perfectly expected or normal complaints, such as Councillor Bochek made reference to. It's like the COVID issue seems to have gone into the background for many person, and now they're trying to catch up with their other issues or questions or what have you. So it was nice to start addressing issues other than COVID. And I guess that'll be my report for now. And with that, CEO Gunby, do you want to express a few thoughts about the past month?
Well, first of all, I hope everyone can hear me and see me at the same time. My internet was apparently upgraded yesterday. I don't buy it, but whatever. So hopefully it works. So I just have a few things. So I'm currently working on a recovery plan for when we do get to open up the office again and start having more staff members in the building. So we are working on that. We still have almost everyone working from home still, and it seems to be going well, except for the odd internet connection issues. And while we did have a pause on recruitment, we've posted for the planner position, and there's going to be hopefully interviews in the coming weeks. And we are going to hire a student in the operations department. So I don't like to use the term back to normal just yet, but we're heading in the right direction, I think.
All right, thank you. Now, with our clerk's permission, can I now go to adopting the regular agenda? Thank you. The motion in front of me reads, be it resolved the council adopts the regular agenda of June 9, 2020 as circulated. Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Councillor Wienko, I see your hand.
Yeah, can I just add a small item, and it may not be all that long, but I understand that the province has made some decisions about what can open up on Friday. And I just wanted to find out what outdoor facilities might be opening up in the township next week.
Shall we add that under new business as item C?
Sure.
Okay, is there anybody else who wants to suggest any changes to our agenda? I'm seeing no hands, so I'll now say, be it resolved that council adopts the regular agenda of June 9, 2020 as amended. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we move on to 9A of staff reports. That's a CEO report with regards to a Macey Bay update. The floor, or should I say the screen, is yours, Ms. Gunby.
Why, thank you, Your Worship. So I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to read this update. I know that council didn't feel like they were always given the up-to-date information about this project. So mainly I wanted to give you sort of a status report of where we are right now with it. And so the recommendation I have is that you receive the report and also recognize that holding an open house is not possible at this time due to COVID. But with more things opening up since this was published, we can now have 10 people in a gathering. So it's possible that we could do something of the sort. But the application, the site plan application, is ready to come to council in July. And I know that council in February asked for another open house to be held. But again, because of COVID, it's not possible to do that at the moment. Council with every application and resolution can easily defer this or defeat this report if that's their wish. But we just wanted to sort of bring it up to your attention that the application is ready to come to council without an open house.
But at this time, you're not asking for a decision for us, I'll call it this month.
Correct.
Councillor Douglas.
I just have a question to Jess. It looks like it is going to open up to 10, or is it already open to 10?
As of Friday, it's open up for 10 people.
I'm afraid.
Are you losing me?
Well, we did. You seem to be back now.
Okay. Yeah, internet. Anyways, do you think it's possible that public meetings could be held? Are you looking at that with the staff, or?
We are looking into it. There's other, I know Barrie has done their committee of adjustment on Zoom, and Severn Township is going to be doing one on Zoom shortly. But with the number of 10 being brought to our attention on Friday, there's other options that we can look into. But it already is on our radar anyways to look into public meetings.
Yeah, super. Thanks, Jess.
Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a few questions here. First of all, the process that we're going through here, as I understood it, was the applicant had to comply with the OMB requirements, and there were several completion elements that they had to achieve. My understanding was that staff were going to come back and report to council on each one of those and help us understand how they had achieved those criteria. That hasn't happened, and I presume, you know, an open house or a public meeting would have been one element to get that information to us and to the public, but I haven't seen that kind of report. But I also wanted to kind of focus in on a couple other things. In the report, in the analysis section, it talks about a site plan being a contract made between the township and Macey Bay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have a contract in place. We don't have a site plan in place. We have a process that will lead to a site plan. So my understanding is we are still in this very public process that gets us to a contract, gets us to a site plan. But since we're not there, I'm wondering what the relevance is of that paragraph.
It was just an explanation to members of council about the site plan agreement. So in July, if the site plan application, which you're correct, there's no contract existing right now because the site plan has not been approved by council. So if it does come in July, then all of the answers for all of the conditions being met for the OMB decision will be included in that report and within the agreement.
So I guess my questions really are, there's likely going to be a ton of information to digest. And I'm wondering why that information isn't forthcoming, if you will. If it's perceived by staff as generally pending, about to come, then I'm wondering why would that information not be made immediately available, at least to council for review, so that we can begin to get clarity, ask questions of staff to make sure that we fully understand it before we are put on the spot to attempt to make a decision.
Well, all the information will be included in the report when it's published the Wednesday before the meeting. The draft agreement was just completed this morning, so we don't have anything to give you just yet, but I can verify when that's completed, if we can distribute that.
Okay, and what is a draft agreement?
The draft site plan agreement.
Okay, so sounds to me like there's a lot more information and perhaps staff opinions, etc., that haven't yet made it to the website. That if we council are going to be asked to make a decision, you know, I hear you that maybe the Wednesday before the meeting there would be something published, but in fairness, given the magnitude of this, I'm not sure that this is an appropriate timeline for us to work with. I would think that given how long this project has gone on and so on, I would expect that we would want to have that report at least a month in advance of a meeting where we are then going to be asked to make a decision on it. So how do we as council, first of all, get that information in advance, and do we need to provide staff direction to provide that information explicitly, you know, at least 30 days in advance, so that we have time to digest it, if there is likely going to be a request for us to make a decision on it?
So what is always an option with council and applications and reports that come to council. So if it comes in July, council always has the right to defer it until the next month, because typically council will have a lot of questions that members of the public also have too. So the council meeting would be the great arena to get all of your questions answered. And then if there's outstanding information, you would defer it like you do other applications, and staff would come back with all of the answers for that as well. You don't need a resolution to have information sent to you. When I get the information, I can verify that we can send it out to council in advance.
Okay, so one other key point here, of the several items of criteria from the OMB, one of them was septic system, another one was species at risk, both of which are tied up with MECP. The septic application is tied up under a judicial review, and according to MECP, the SARS review has been suspended until such time as the judicial review is completed, which causes me to wonder, how is it that this application could proceed in any way for any approval from council, given that those two key line items that were dictated by the OMB as criteria for any moving forward have not and cannot proceed until that judicial review is completed.
And it's always up to council if they want to defer or defeat something to wait for additional information, likely the judicial review to be complete, being one example.
So I understand that we have that discretion. My concern is, it looks like staff is continuing to move forward as if there are no obstacles. To your point, you said something was, you know, finalized this morning, some application or whatever. So it appears that staff are moving forward to accommodate the applicant in this process, and yet there are serious obstacles that it sounds to me like preclude any progress. And I'm wondering why staff are moving in this direction when we have these known elements that are essentially they're blockers of any progress. There seems to be a disconnect from what I'm seeing. Would you agree, or? I mean,
It should not appear that way, and we're following the Planning Act. And I know there's outstanding matters that are out of our control, but we're following the Planning Act right now by, bringing the complete application to council, because this is your decision, your final decision. So
but doesn't
it's not up to staff to say we're not going to do it.
I understand that, but doesn't the Planning Act require that if there are criteria dictated by the OMB that must be achieved and cleared before an application can proceed, that the Planning Act would recognize that those are obstacles, and that the Planning Act would essentially say no work is needed to proceed with this application until all of those criteria are completed? It doesn't make any sense that the Planning Act is an independent process and independent of this very critical OMB decision.
I think, if I may, I'm going to jump into this. And I want to be corrected by Ms. Gunby if I'm mistaken, but it's my understanding that the applicant is free to make the application. It's the applicant who will decide whether they want it in front of council. And then it's up to council to decide whether council believes that the applicant has satisfied all these conditions. We will get a report from staff, their analysis of the application and whether or not they believe it should be passed and why. But then it's it'll be council who will make the final decision on whether or not we believe, based on the knowledge that we have, did the applicant meet the conditions as specified under the OMB hearing of now more than 3 years ago. Ms. Gunby, did I?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So
Councilor Bocheck. What? Councilor Hazelton?
one final question then. We've heard rumors of some 30-day window, a magic window. We've been told in the past that has come and gone, that the applicant could have exercised that 30-day window in the past, because they did present a site plan application several years ago, or a few years ago, but of course it was constrained by these OMB conditions. So please let us know, is this 30-day window that has been rumored in the past, is it indeed history, or is it an active consideration?
It's history. They could have appealed last year, and they could appeal tomorrow. So nothing about this report or it coming in July kicks in a 30-day deadline for anything.
Thank you.
Councilor Bocheck, I saw your hand up. And I see Councilor Cooper to follow Councilor Bocheck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to direct my question to our CAO. Some time ago, council expressed a wish to have major files like Macey's Bay handled by other than our staff. At that time was Jamie Robinson. Jamie has been out of the picture on these Zoom meetings for some time. Is he still on contract to handle the Macey's Bay file? Or
Yes, he is.
He is. So Victoria is not involved in the file, or she is in the way of helping?
She's involved as her being the manager of planning, because she needs to be educated about the history of the file. But Jamie is still working on it for us.
Okay, so
But
he
this was mainly just an information report. So there was no real need for him to attend this, but he would write the report, and he would attend the meeting where this is heard.
Okay, so he still is the lead on the Macey's Bay file as far as acting in our best interest as a planning consultant?
Correct.
Okay, and perhaps in the next council meeting, I'm going to suggest that we review that and look to see. There was some mention of conflicts and things like that in the past months using an outside planner, Jamie, on this file. So perhaps during the month we can, you and I can speak and maybe put something on the agenda for next month, just so we know who's in charge of this file, because it is a major file for this township. And if there's going to
And
be any,
Jamie's going to see it through.
Yeah, Jamie is going to see it through.
Yes, he is.
Okay, then I really don't need to get involved. Thank you.
And also, he just sent me a message. If you want him to join in on this meeting, he's available.
Okay, I do not, but perhaps someone else would, so I'll stand by. Thank you.
All right,
You're
I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wienko, because I saw his hand. But I want to caution everybody, what we're discussing today should not be the discussion that we'll have if and when the site plan is put in front of us. This is basically just an update. So let's not get too far down the road when we don't know what exactly is going to be presented to us or when. We know that Ms. Gunby's predicted that it might be next month, but we don't know that yet. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Kritzier. Notwithstanding a lot of points that were raised by Councillor Hazelton, I do have one additional question, and I clearly was mistaken. I understood that we had passed a resolution that we would host a public meeting, not another open house. We've already had one of those, and it turns out I'm being told by the CAO that it's another open house. And as I understand it, CAO Gunby, as far as this whole process is concerned, I'm not aware of any public meeting that has occurred. So my question is, A, have we had a public meeting? And B, if we haven't, does the meeting that we have regarding the site plan agreement and approval thereof or deferral or whatever, does that become our only public meeting? Because the public has been very interested in this for a long time. And
Yes.
I don't think that open houses are the forum that we're really looking for in terms of getting feedback. So it's very nice to be able to tell stories in open houses, but it's not the kind of forum that we need from a public meeting perspective. So could you bring us some wisdom on that? Thank you.
I exude the wisdom. So site plan agreements are required, commercial site plan agreements are required to go to council. There is no requirement for a public meeting, similar to a rezoning or an official plan amendment or a committee of adjustment meeting. The resolution that council passed in February was to have an additional open house, not a public meeting. And since one isn't required, we wouldn't be expecting to host one next month. So, but if council wants to defer this and state that you want to have a public meeting when we're able to, and that's a definite option that council can exercise.
So just to follow up on that, thank you for the clarification. So we've not had one and we're not planning one. And I just wanted to be very clear on that. And you talked about some of the other meetings which we have, and for example, committee of adjustment. Is that not a public meeting?
It is.
Where the public could come forward and express views to everybody in attendance, including anybody that would be attending on Zoom or being recorded on video. So that's a public process.
Correct.
Where has that process been with Macey Bay?
Nothing Macey Bay has been required to go to committee of adjustment for a public meeting because it's just the site plan application. And the site plan application does not require a public meeting. And again, I know what you're saying, but council can always defer this and ask for a public meeting when we're able to.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I wasn't suggesting it come to committee of adjustment. I know it would come to council. That wasn't my suggestion, but just that I think there's a high expectation by the public to be able to have input. That's the long and the short of it. And I hope that when we get to that point that our council will address that issue. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard correctly, because I believe your answer simply was because it's a commercial application, the Planning Act does not require a public meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Little surprising and disappointing piece of news there. But with that, Councillor Wienko.
So thank you very much. I'm somewhat pleased that this thing is coming to fruition, and I'm looking forward to it coming to council next month. What I was concerned about is that I didn't want council to put a lot of issues in front of this coming to council, because I don't want this particular issue going to the OMB or whatever they call it nowadays without it coming to council first. It would be most disappointing if the proponent went to the OMB without council having the opportunity to look at the site plan control. So I like to get the site plan control in front of council. We may be able to have some impact on the overall plan. And I think the public needs to see the overall plan in order to get the full picture. So I'm looking forward to coming to council. Now, I can agree with everybody that I doubt if we'll be making this decision in July. I think we'll have enough questions. I think the public will have enough questions that need to be answered in order for all of council to be able to make a final and full decision on this. As to a public meeting, the concern I have there is that I don't think there's a single individual in this township that supports this project. So I think a public meeting in front of council will basically give 100% negative issues and excuses why they shouldn't be approved and so on, which I don't know what benefit that would be to the overall council, because I know there's a lot of issues that have to be resolved yet. It would be nice if some of the councillors who are closer to the issue can maybe put out an email to us saying what they feel are some of the outstanding issues that need to be resolved before we can make a decision, because I've lost track of some of the key issues that need to be done. For example, there was the marina issue hasn't been addressed yet and so on. That was quite a concern a while ago, but is that still a concern nowadays? Should that be resolved before we go ahead and approve it? So if a couple of the councillors can put together an email saying these are the issues that need to be addressed before we make a final decision, I would find that very, very helpful. And but I do want to get this site plan control in front of council, in front of the public, so we can all ask those hard questions. And if we have enough questions then to delay it, I can't see making a decision in July or even August. So, but I do want it in front of council as soon as possible, and go from there.
I would like to, before I recognize Councillor Jarvis, because I did see your hand, Councillor, I would like to caution everyone that when this comes in front of council, that we have an open mind, because that's a legal requirement, and I think an absolute necessity, that we will listen to whatever input is put in front of us at that time, and B, that while we may share some information through various means prior to any meeting, we have to be very careful that there's no discussion that is taking place privately, that no decisions are made privately or anything like that. It has to be a very public process that we have to be seen. And if it comes in front of us in July or August or whenever it comes in front of us, we have to have an open mind to the information being provided. And so I just want to add that caution. We can all make our own predictions of what we think might happen, but we should not do it as a council offline until all the information. We should do it publicly when all the information is presented. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try not to rehash everything that's already come before us here in this meeting. I'll address our CAO though. Of course, this is all hypothetical in a sense, because we don't know what's going to happen, whether it's going to be before us or not. But is there recourse for Macey Bay Development to tell us post-July meeting or appeal any decisions we make in July? I'm thinking that in July we won't have enough information and we'll want to defer. But I presume there's a venue for, or an avenue for Macey Bay Development to say, no, you've had enough time. Let's get this thing moving. We're going to appeal your deferral decision and let's get this thing on the road. There is that possibility, correct?
Correct.
That's my concern.
And if I could just add something else to add on to Councillor Ryankel's point, I do agree it would be best if it came to council instead of them, if they are going to appeal, instead of them appealing before a council has had the chance to review a recommendation and a report. Because when an appeal happens, you have to send them so much information. So they would get all of the minutes from the meeting that outlines council's concerns if they were verbal about them. So they would get that. And then they would see that, you know, council made a decision based on this report and this information. So without them having the report, without council hearing the report and them just appealing, it's just in our best interest to have a report presented to council and discussed and voted on.
Councillor Jarvis, do you had a follow-up to that?
Just to follow up to that, then, if given the current situation where we're missing, there's important stuff missing with regards to MOECP on sewage, and then there's also species at risk information that's still to come. If we're in the situation in July is the same as it is now. In other words, no new information has come forward with regards to those two serious aspects, and there's a judicial review, of course, and we defer. And who knows what's going to happen. But if we were to defer, does staff consider the grounds that we're currently providing, we're suggesting here, to be enough grounds for there to be no basis for an appeal by Macey Bay? This is all hypothetical, I realize, but I'm just asking.
I doubt it.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. With that, we'll start round two. I saw Councillor Hazelton and Councillor Bochek's hands up. So Councillor Hazelton.
You can let Councillor Bochek go ahead.
Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to direct my question at our CAO once again. Jessica, I was in conversation via email and in person with Oak Bay, and they are posing the question to me that they feel applications are being accepted by commercial properties. They're being processed and being worked up to the permit stage. And permits, my understanding was that our policy was during COVID-19 that we were going to be accepting applications, which this is at Macey's Bay. It's an application for approval of a site plan. But my understanding was that no permits and no permissions were being granted after March the 15th. Their concern was they know of permits that have been issued during this period when they said there wasn't, and their question to me was they came and asked me why their application and permit was not forthcoming for their sewage and their new build out of the development there, while other commercial developments are moving forward. Applications are being reviewed and approved, and some permits even being issued during this time. So I guess what I'm asking for is if someone can be really clear where we're headed with the application, the working through the applications and the permitting, or the concessions that are given to some and not others. So perhaps you could address that. I'm not making any accusations. I'm simply repeating something in a constituent meeting of their concern that why are some moving forward and some are being told, no, we're not doing anything at this time.
So I think it was 2 weeks ago that the government then permitted us to be able to issue building permits. So, you know, things are changing every day when it comes to what's allowed and what's not allowed. So I'm assuming that when they came in or when they called, it was during a time where we weren't able to issue them, but now we are.
Okay, so all applications are able to be moved forward and permits being granted at this time. And that's something that we should get out to our commercial properties and constituents, because I don't think they're aware of that, and they just feel that some are being treated different than others. So thank you for the clarification on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hazelton, do you want your turn now?
I was wanting to focus on the recommendation before we actually vote on it. And so we may or may not want to deal with it now until it's on the table, I guess, from a process standpoint. But there is a line in there that talks about a comment deadline of June 22nd. Well, if we don't have the report and don't have a time to digest the report, it's pretty tough to have any comment deadline that precedes the report. So I would certainly seek to delete that line from the recommendation in the resolution.
I'm going to interpret that to being a question to CEO Gunby as to what that line means.
Yes, so thank you, through your worship. If the most up-to-date information is not currently on our website, I know we added a few things either last week or the week before. I honestly can't keep track of days any longer. But we would get the finalized version and put it on the website as soon as possible. And then June 22nd, that gives us time, it gives staff time to review all of the comments and implement them if necessary, and have answers prepared for the meeting.
I guess if I could be fair here, if we are going to provide comment, if we think that there's any likelihood that the public, when they find information on the website, will want to provide comment. Here we are on June 9th. June 22nd is what, 2 weeks out? And I mean, the timelines here are unrealistic, in my opinion. And I don't know why we would need to put a comment deadline on it, given that what I've heard from all the other councillors is it's unlikely that council would want to make any decisions in the July meeting. We would want to instead receive, understand, question, and digest any staff report before making a decision. So why would we want to constrain comment?
We can easily remove that, but it's easier for staff to have the comments by a certain date, because in public meetings, we typically get comments during the meeting. So it's really hard for staff to be able to address the concerns when we don't have time to review them ourselves.
Right. So I just think that given what we've already talked about, there seems to be lots of appetite to listen and understand, but you've already told us that we're not going to be able to read anything before the Wednesday before the next meeting. So putting a deadline date before that is, I think, unreasonable.
Councillor Douglas.
I just wanted to address that with you, Jessica. Is it possible that if we end up deferring this in the July meeting, that the process is opened up again for further comment or questions to the public?
Oh, definitely. If I don't want to speak about how council will vote next month when something comes to them. So hypothetically, if council was to defer any decision, then it would be another month until the information was brought back, and members of the public would definitely be able to provide additional comments before the next meeting.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. We've received concern expressed with regards to the very last portion of the motion that's in front of us, which reads, namely, implement a comment deadline of June 22nd, 2020.
Peter, you had a hand up with Councillor Wienko.
Oh, okay, Councillor Wienko, you want to add a comment to this?
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, we are going to go forward with the July presentation and so on. And I can see the staff wanting to have all the input from the public into that, that they can get by the end of the month in order to have a full, wholesome report presented to council. But I do agree that after our July meeting, there will be a lot of questions not only from council themselves, from the general public. And I want all those questions to go forward. But getting back to the issues that sometime by the end of July or shortly after that meeting, I would personally like to know what are the outstanding issues that should be resolved, that we can justify need to be resolved before we can make a decision. You know, we can always delay this project indefinitely by having a lot of outstanding issues, but I need to know what are the key issues that need to be resolved before we make a final decision. And I say I would like to get that before July, but if it happens to be after July, that's okay too. But I think we need a fulsome discussion and get all these issues asked.
And again, I'm going to repeat, CEO Gunby is saying there's a possibility that the application will be made to the July council meeting. She's not saying it will happen, and it won't be staff decision. It won't be council decision. It'll be a decision of the applicant. Do they want to bring the application forward for the July meeting? They may choose to delay it. We don't know that yet. So I want to make sure that A, we don't conclude at this moment that there is going to be an application in front of us in July, and B, that we are already predicting how we might vote on it, because if an application comes forward, we don't know at this moment all the information it will contain. We know a fair chunk of it because it's already been offered to us and posted on our website, but we don't know what the final report will actually look like. I would also like to strongly encourage any members of the public who want to comment on this to do it as soon as possible. That doesn't preclude you from adding further comments later on as you learn more. But if you have comments to make, whether there's a deadline or not, the sooner you make them, the easier it is that we can have staff respond to those comments and include them in their report.
Mhm.
All right, so if we're looking at this resolution, I'll read it as it currently stands. As it was offered to us, it reads, be it resolved that council received the Macey Bay update report and that council recognize holding an open house is not possible at this time, and that staff post the latest information on the website for review, and that if an application comes forward to a July meeting, implement a comment deadline of June 22nd, 2020. I certainly get a sense from a number of councillors that that deadline is not, they do not want that to be part of the motion, and I've seen a couple of heads nod. So I'm going to suggest that we just delete the last line of the resolution. And we'll modify it, simply be the first 3 lines referring to that we received the report, we understand an open house is not possible at this time, and that staff post the latest information to the website for review. You want me to read it in full at this point? Then I'll say all those in favor. All right, so that is passed. We're deleting the last line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Did we lose Councillor Cooper, or is it just something on my screen?
I think we just cut him off.
We've
Well,
lost him.
that's fine too, Stephen.
He's been lost, or his connection has been lost, so he's no longer in attendance at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, our next item is staff report B, the financial service report 2020-14. To our treasurer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is an update in relation to IT, as IT falls under the realm of the finance department. I would like to start by saying that I missed a little piece of the resolution. So I've asked our clerk to include in the resolution that that the resolution also include the upgrade to our operating systems, but not just Office 365. So the report is there for you. So this is a full upgrade of our servers, moving to a cloud-based solution, and also an update on what we've done to improve our internet connection. So hoping that the report was comprehensive, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. Clerk Wade, you got the modification. Will you be able to put that in front of us? It's basically the resolution that was part of the report with the second paragraph expanded to include upgrade to the Township of Georgian Bay's operating system has been inserted. All right, so I'm going to ask our councilors if they have any comments or any questions with regards to the report that was presented to us in our package by our treasurer. Councilor Jarvis.
Yes, I'm just a little, I was going through the report. I'm not very good in accounting practices, even at the best of times. But I was looking at the, Julie, your analysis schedule, which showed certain criteria when you're putting out the, I presume the RFP to have this done. And it gives, I guess it gives scores, but I'm not sure how to read that chart. That's all. I hope you understand the one I'm talking about.
Yes, so the really the total score was out of 5 proportionately. So the vendor that got the highest score was very close to the second. You see at the bottom there in the analysis portion in the first table. The highest scoring was 4.65 out of 5, and the second highest scoring was 4.6 out of 5. So they were very close together, and it took a lot of analysis to get to deciding which vendor, even though they scored closely together. It came down to, you know, what kind of cloud system that they were offering, which is the third schedule in the analysis section that compares what we will have available in IT terms, which I'm not in IT, so I did receive help from a peer in another municipality to assist me in you know, grading the two.
I appreciate the fact that you felt you need to go outside because it certainly is a difficult exercise, and to a certain extent you're almost held accountable to IT on this, because they'll just cut you off if you don't approve something. I noticed that in the chart, in that same chart, you don't list the people that the companies that are providing the information. I presume that was deliberate. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the RFP respondents, and I haven't done so already, but the RFP respondents sheet will be posted on our website. It's part of our procurement process. So that states the vendor's name and their quoted price. And then, so the 2 higher ones are in the analysis below, which is Your IT, Azure, and Helix with Hosted Biz. So
I saw that. Okay, thank you for answering those questions. Appreciate it.
Councilor Hazelton, is your hand up or are you just thinking? Okay. Any other questions? Clerk Wade, can you display the modified resolution to make sure we get it correctly?
I believe Julie is going to make that show up on your screen any second.
Treasurer Boutiette, can
I
you?
bet you that depends on IT, right?
There we go.
Okay, so this resolution, the middle paragraph has been expanded a little bit, and it now reads, Be it resolved that council received the progress report number 2 on information technology strategic plan, and that council acknowledges that staff will award to Helix IT the contract to upgrade the Township of Georgian Bay's operating system and implement Microsoft 365 for all staff at a total setup cost of $2,700 and a subsequent annual cost of $90,000. And that council acknowledges that staff has authorized the upgrade of internet services to 100G of fiber optics at a one-time cost of $22,000. Is there any further discussion? And I'm just going to double check because I
believe Councillor Bocheck has his hand up, sir.
Councilor Wojcik.
Thank you. Is this the work that we see currently being done at the township office now with the digging and channeling and cable routing through the lawn and that? Is that what's going on?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We ran the conduit yesterday, and we should see fiber optics implemented within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
It's either that or 2 cans and a string.
And that's so weather sensitive. Okay, with seeing no more hands, I'm going to ask all those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. We're now moving on to the new business section. And the first item there is the LAS electricity commodity cost review. And Councillor Jarvis, I believe you brought this forward.
Yeah, only because I was totally confused by it. But I was looking at the charts and they talk about the was it light source or whatever the heck it is. I presume that has to do with or street lights, and I presume that's literally street lights. Is that correct? It's not some term for some company or some other phase of operations. I was just curious about that. And 2, again, reviewing it for the second time, I said to myself, well, hang on, let's just leave it to our finance people to assure us that they're happy with the results of that and the information that's been provided. And I'm prepared to accept that. But that's why I was rather confused by all the data. That's all. So yeah, I just want Julie's reassurance that she's happy with the report. That would make me very happy.
Through you, Your Worship, absolutely. I've been dealing with the LAS program and onboarding the last 3 municipalities that I worked for. I've done, and by all means, I'm going to put my little legal caveat there. I'm no way an energy expert. I just know the numbers. So LAS is one of many what they call Ontario energy retailers. They're not the only one, but they're the only ones who deal with municipalities only. And I've done an analysis with others. So what this means is that for us, we're off of time of use billing, which is very expensive. And most organization companies can get off time of use by going through one of those Ontario retailers of energy. And so for us, we are part of the LAS program. They negotiate rates with us with OPA on the behalf of many municipalities. And yes, the street light portion is literally street lights. Street lights don't each have a meter, so it's flat rated based on the technology used. So when you there's a formula, and when you upgrade to say LED street lights, the formula then cost per street light goes down. So they have a formula for both the street lights, old school, which I don't recall the technology, and then the street lights, which are LEDs. So in my opinion, you could see from the charts that we are saving lots of money by being part of this program instead of being time of use billed, because we are in operations during the peak of time of use, and usually not in this COVID state, but usually we would be in the office at peak hours. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? The motion in front of me reads, be it resolved that council receives the LAS electricity commodity cost review for calendar year 2019 for information purposes only. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And next on the agenda, request for installation of turtle nesting site on untraveled portion of road allowance on Port 7 Road North. Councillor Jarvis, this is you as well.
Peter, if I may first, it's Councillor Bochek.
With Councillor Jarvis's permission.
Absolutely.
I was not here at the beginning of the meeting, so I was not able to declare whether I had a conflict or a pecuniary interest. So I'd just like to add at this point that I could have a pecuniary interest. I don't know how we signed the book via Zoom, but I do own property adjacent to the road allowance, and it would factor into my fair judgment on this, because being adjacent property, I have the ability to apply to purchase that road allowance.
Okay.
So any decision I make here would jeopardize myself.
Sorry, Clerk Way, have you noted that in the records?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Bochek, you do not have our permission to participate in this discussion.
Thank you.
Councillor Jarvis, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to, I think this is a very laudable request. I don't know how legitimate or how, not necessarily legitimate, but whether it would work or not. And I'm wondering if we can pursue some further professional advice on whether this would be the place to put in this type of thing, and whether it would be practical. And I'm wondering, do we go to Brad on this? I'm just curious to know how we would proceed if we want to accept that this is a good idea and we want further information.
Thank you. Mr. Sokash.
Thank you, Worship. I'd be happy to meet with the people as well as the, I think it's the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve or someone like that to discuss the project and the feasibility of it.
I would greatly appreciate that, Brad. That'd be great. I think we should be, it's something we should be looking into.
All right, I'm going to read how the motion currently stands. It's be it resolved that council received the correspondence from Laura Russell dated June 1st, 2020, and that staff be directed to obtain approvals from the District of Muskoka in establishing a turtle nesting site on Port 7 Road North as identified as a turtle nesting site and construct the appropriate site. Councilor Rienko.
Just on that issue, I also noticed in the last chip that the Parks Canada or Trent Waterway is going to be doing some work in that area on Dam G. And I'm just wondering if that might impact this particular area. And since there may be the need to add some kind of a sand that might get into the water, then you get into the issue with the Trent Waterway. They have to get some kind of approval from them. So I think they need to be consulted for their construction activity that's going to be happening in the next little while, and also their permission to modify the shoreline there. And any private individuals that are involved in the area too, they should also be consulted.
Mr. Sokash.
Through the mayor, I am in contact with the contractor that's doing the work in that area. And if I'm able, I'll have them attend the meeting. And if they're not able to attend, then I can speak to them outside of it as well as any affected property owner.
So I think even though this resolution directs staff to obtain approvals, I think in reality, we're directing staff to obtain more information, including the feasibility on this project, in addition to the appropriate approvals and agreements of all those affected. I don't know if we should change the resolution to reflect the, I'll call it expanded task. Because what I'm sensing is that as much as I believe that council is in favor of exploring the feasibility of this project, I think we have to obtain some more information before the final decision can actually be made.
And I'd agree with that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Clerk Way, can we modify the resolution to capture our interest in this project and our direction to staff to explore, get more information, explore the feasibility of implementing such a project? And I see that she's looking the other way, typing away, so I'm presuming we just have to be patient for a couple of moments.
If I can ask Julie to perhaps share the screen again. Thank you, Julie. Does that capture?
I think that does the job, yes. Council, any further comments on this before I call the vote? Councilor Douglas.
I just want to thank Councillor Jarvis for bringing this forward. I think it's really an important issue with our turtles. I have really noticed the decline even in our own lake with our painted turtles. Fortunately, last night I had one in my garden laying eggs, so I mean that was always great news. But I think anything we can do to assist when we've got construction going is worthwhile. So thank you for bringing that forward.
And with that, I'm going to ask all those in favor of the resolution as it was prepared by our clerk. Okay, and that is passed. All right, where are we in our agenda?
We have item 10C requested by Councillor Wayenko. Outdoor facilities.
Councillor Wayenko, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I just read yesterday about the province doing some more opening up of facilities and so on. And I guess the stage 2. And our municipality has been included in that stage 2. And then he was talked about outdoor facilities. So I'm just wondering from staff, we have a couple of beaches, one in Port 7 and one up in Mactier. Would they be involved in the ability to open up? I know there's a tennis court up in 6 Mile Lake. People have been asking when that's going to open up. And so what potential outdoor facilities? I don't think there's been any approval for any indoor facilities to be open, but any outdoor facilities that we can open up after Friday.
So what's included is splash pads, beaches, parks, the bathrooms. The other outdoor facilities that we have is the Ball Diamond in Mactier and the outdoor rink in Hanya Harbor. Everyone still has to.
Did you say bathrooms or an outdoor facility?
No, I may have. Bathrooms and outdoor facilities. But everyone does have to abide by the social distancing and no more than 10 people as of Friday.
Okay, does that include the tennis court up in 6 Mile? I can't see that being closed, continue being closed.
That would be open because it's an outdoor recreational facility.
Okay, so basically you're saying beaches and tennis courts and most of our outdoor facilities are going to be open.
Yep.
All right, any other comments on this item? Obviously, this doesn't require direction from council because you got direction from the province. And I trust though that we have to still tell everybody to exercise caution and physical distancing because even though the curve is going down, it has not disappeared. I think next on our list here are a couple of bylaws with regards to a new appointment. So over to, is it the clerk that's going to respond to this? Or is it our treasurer?
I can speak to that. It's pretty straightforward. So as a standard process, there's certain statutory positions such as the treasurer and the deputy treasurer that need to have appointment bylaws, giving them the authority as dictated in the Act. So that is the first bylaw, which is bylaw 2020-045. The second bylaw that we're asking for approval is the signing authority bylaw, which is 2020-045. And that allows our deputy treasurer to sign checks.
I must comment that I find it frustrating we're appointing somebody that we haven't met given our COVID-19 circumstances. I mean, can't you just at least, flash a smiling picture or have her join the
She is a real person. I can attest to that.
Well, I appreciate that because, we have no proof. All right, I see no hands. The first motion reads, be it resolved that council adopts bylaw 2020-044. Being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the township of Georgian Bay, Celine Anderson. All those in favor? And that is carried. And the subsequent motion, be it resolved the council adopts bylaw 2020-045, being a bylaw to provide for signing officers for the township of Georgian Bay. And that's basically our existing bylaw with Ms. Anderson added to it.
We've lost another counselor.
Okay, but we do.
Vote check. We still have quorum.
We have quorum, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Councilor Wienkel, okay, good. And my hand's up too, just to make sure you got 4 votes, and that is carried. Now, the next thing on our agenda is going into closed session. And it's a little frustrating if we're only going to do that with 4 people, but I think we have to work with what we got. And the motion reads, whereas section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended provides authority for councils of municipalities to close the meeting or parts of a meeting to the public if the subject matter pertains to a matter identified in section 239(2). And whereas the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay deems it necessary to close this portion of the meeting in order to address matters under the following sections of 239(2). A, council closed minutes of May 13th, 2020. B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, re HR update. Now, be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay moves into closed session of council at 11:18 a.m. All those in favor? All right, we have well, whatever that adds up, 5 votes in favor. So now we have to knock off YouTube and be patient for a moment.